Hey, welcome to Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'm Lee, and in this video I'll show you how I've made 16 tables worth of terrain using XPS foam. Right, here we go. So I'm going to show you how I cut it all out, and here you can see I've got all the rough shapes, just basically cutting these boards, snapping them to get all the different rectangles and squares that I need to get going with. And to do that, I used my Spyderco pen knife and just made sure it was really sharp and just went along and scored it and then just snapped that foam. So that's really quick and easy to get to this stage. For these bricks, I was a little bit more careful. I measured these out using the 30mm XPS sheets and then made sure they're all the same size, and these are going to form bricks to make some little brick walls and ruins with. And then I've got some of this hardboard which will form the bases for all the different terrain pieces, so it's very clear where we measure to when playing the game, and all this is going to be for Age of Sigmar. Before we go any further, I just want to say a massive thank you to you for watching the videos over the past 2.5 years, as today I've just hit 30,000 subscribers, which is really awesome. I'm really happy to reach this milestone. It's all thanks to you, so thank you so much. Right, let's start carving out some foam, and my hot wire cutter broke when I started my Rogue Idol miniature, and so I bought another one, and then that didn't cut this white foam, so I ended up going back to my Spyderco knife again and just hacking away and used that for the whole process. And I've got to say, it's a lot quicker and you get some really nice textures by doing it. And lucky for me, I used to be a chef in the Royal Navy years ago, so I picked up some knife skills, so I'm happy to just go at this and not worry about it too much. And after doing this for hours, I didn't cut myself at all. And here you can see the finished piece, and I'm going to do that with all of these bits, and then they're going to stack up and be some nice desert piles. And that's all there is to it. That's the process I've used for making this giant Rogue Idol that you're going to see later on, including how I cut the head. I did use the wire cutter a little bit around the edge of the pink foam just to get it a bit crisper. But on the white butt that you can see there and all the feet and hands, I just used the knife, so you can really get some nice effects. Then I used a different technique and a different knife to do this underground cavernous volcanic rock style. And you can see I've got a Stanley blade here, and I'm just literally just chipping away, really just popping the blade in and then pinching it off. So I'm not really cutting it, I'm almost just pinching away and just snipping it out. So you can see I'm just going crazy. I felt like Edward Scissorhand making all this, and I made a ton of mess all over my room. But the effect, I think, is really cool, especially when you stack them all up. You can get some nice arches, some nice piles, and this is going to be great to represent the kind of caverns that you do in battle in Age of Sigmar. And I just did that process on a load, managed to get 3 tables worth just doing this technique. And with all these trimmings, I glued those, or some of them, onto the Rogue Idol's face just to give it a bit more texture, and then pieced it together on the table to give myself an idea of the size and the literal footprint that this terrain is going to take up. Then I kept going, making all different shapes, taking those stone pillars, hacking away at them, giving them lots of texture and shape. There's the bricks that we saw, and I wanted to make those rougher and speed up the process. So I put them in this empty toolbox, then took some real life bricks, whack those in there, and this is going to be the same process you would do on a smaller scale with smaller foam bricks and little stones. So I'm putting them in there, and I shake this up, and then you start roughing those edges away, denting it, chipping it. In the end, I ended up just throwing the toolbox around to really get those bricks doing the work for me, and then by the end of it had some really nice effects and texture. And then you can just pinch away little bits like this if you really want to rough the bricks up a little bit more, but I found this was enough as it was. And then it was time to glue it all together, and here's the glue gun I use. I put it on 60 watts so it's not too hot and doesn't melt the foam. And annoyingly, I deleted me gluing it together, the demo that I did. But basically, I just glued each piece together, put the piles up, made the arches, went through and put all the feet, toes together. And I was quite generous with that glue. I put quite a lot on, so it's going to be really strong and sturdy. Then it was time to cut out all the bases. So I numbered all the bases and I numbered all the foam, so I knew it would match up later on. And I just took my jigsaw and cut out these sheets of hardboard. And this is really thin stuff, very cheap, £11 for a massive board that's going to do all 16 tables. And then once I'd cut them out, I just chucked them all in a box, and there was loads of bases for all this terrain. And then I needed to sand it all down. I did this outside, but I just used some rough paper like this. I'm just showing you how I did it here. And I just just went around and did all the edges just to round them off, get them nice and smooth, and so they'd be ready for painting, but also not going to damage the models or anything like that with any rough edges. And again, it's a long process. I sat there for ages just sanding away all these edges, so it really is doing everything in a big batch, going through all the stages. And it took me about 50 hours to get to the stage I'm at that you'll see at the end of this video. Then I took all the bases and laid them all out on the table so I could see all the letters and numbers, and then I found the matching foam stack and then I just glued that on. This bit I did film, so you are going to see some gluing, and basically I'm just going to put that on there again, 65 watts so it doesn't melt the foam, and then that's going to really fix this really sturdily to the wooden base. And so just match it up, make sure it fits, give it a good press down, and then this glue sets really quickly and you're good to go. So that's pretty much it. That's the assembly part done, and I just glued all the bases onto all the foam stacks until everything was finished, as you can see here now. Before I base paint this, there's just one other job to do. I just want to add a few small pebbles and stones around the bases. And so to do that, I'm just going to take some different ingredients. But the main one is this golden flint that I got from a hardware shop. It cost like £6 for 20 kilos. And I just put some in a colander, washed it under the tap, then put it on a greaseproof sheet, baked it in the oven until it was completely dry. And then that's free of dust, free of dirt, and it's also sterilised as well. What I did then was I took those stones, I'm just going to glue them in place, but just to show you the effect. So I'm going to put it here, and then this will all be painted in the primer. For some of them, like the Rogue Idol, I'm not going to paint the pebbles, I'm going to glue them on later, but for most of the things, I'm going to glue them on now. You can also use stuff like this cocoa fibre brick from the pet store. This makes some great texture that you can put on different models depending on what you're doing. Some general purpose PVA, I've gone for a really strong one here, Evo stick. Some bird sand, this is ultra fine sand, really good stuff. And then some filler, I didn't use it in the end, but it's handy if you want to like put some around the bases of these kind of stones and make it a bit more bumpy. I felt the stones were going to be enough, so I just put some hot glue down, and then I took just a few of the stones in my hand, sprinkled them onto the glue, and then just pressed it down in place. Be careful you don't go right through, because even at 65 watts, this glue's pretty hot. I burnt my fingers a few times, but it's not too bad, but it still hurts. And then I just did that all around, made it look nice and as natural as I could. This is just going to break up where those straight lines meet, and make it look a bit more natural. Then that's glued really quickly, that hot glue. So by the time I've done the pebbles on all of it, and that took me about 4 to 5 hours to do all that terrain. So it is quite a boring job, I must say, at this stage. Then all I'm going to do is put that bird sand into a box, and then I'm going to get this super strong PVA. I'm not watering it down, I'm going solid here, and I'm putting a generous coat all over the wood. It's going to help to seal in the wood. Not really worried about that. It's mostly to make the sand stick, but it's also going to help give a bit more bondage to those pebbles and stones that I put on. And you can see I'm really getting in those nooks and crannies and working it in there. And then a good generous sprinkling of sand. It looks nice and neat now, but by the end of it, again, this was another few hours of just putting sand on the bases. It got quite messy, but I was being as tidy as I could. But there we go. That's all there is to it. So it looks like a frosted donut, and that's all the effect I was going for. I let that dry for a really good long 24 hours to make sure it's fully set. Then took it out in the garden on a nice sunny day, and it's time to paint it all. And this is going to be the primer. And then once I put this primer on, I can do anything I like to this. I can spray it, I can dry brush it, I can add flocking, all sorts. Now, instead of using Mod Podge or PVA, I use this garage floor paint, and this is really great for sealing in the XPS foam. The paint's got lots of sealant in there, so that's really good, but it's also going to really cover all the sand and let all the texture come through because it's not too thick, and it's just going to be perfect. So a really quick and easy way to do it, and I use this whole can of black to do most of the terrain, so it goes quite a long way. It costs about £28, but I certainly recommend this brand. This is the Johnston's one, and I've gone for black. They do a grey as well, which you'll actually see later on, because when I almost ran out of the black, I needed to use some of the grey that I had from a previous project. But this will take about 16 hours to dry. Smells quite bad, so definitely do it outside. And then I've just got this brush that I know I'll never use again because it was trashed by the end of this. And then I'm just going to go over and just literally paint everything with one coat. And one coat of this is all you need. And you can be really generous with it. get it in there and really work it into all the gaps, all the nooks and crannies, and just give it a really nice, generous, thick coat all over. But the paint itself is thin enough to let all the details shine through. Here you go, I'll give you a close-up look so you can see that, and that's all there is to it. It's really awesome stuff. This has completely covered all that foam. You can't see any of it coming through apart from the gaps I've missed, but I'll go over and touch that up with a smaller brush or hide it with some glue and flocking later on. But here, it's really done a great job, and I'm really happy using this stuff. I think it's a lot quicker and probably cheaper than using definitely cheaper than Mod Podge, and cheaper, I imagine, than paint and PVA as well, because this was that full 2.5 litre tub of paint to do this. So if you were getting that much PVA, then paint on top, I think it's going to be a little bit more, but Mod Podge would be a fortune for this much. And here you can see I used the dark grey one to do the stones, and I might do a wash over that, but I might not. We'll have to wait and see how the dry brushing goes in the next stage. But that's as far as I'm going to go in this video. In the next video, I'll show you how I've taken the primed models, add some flock to it. I'm going to use the stones, those little pebbles on this rogue idol, to mix up and break up the colour. So come and join me for that video coming really soon. When it's finished, I'll be combining all the XPS foam terrain with proper Games Workshop terrain and also this awesome MDF terrain from TT Combat. So there'll be a really nice mix of natural features and then like man-made buildings and orc-made buildings as well. So lots to look forward to for the tournament. If you'd like to find out about the tournament I'll be using this terrain in, there's a link down below. And a massive thank you to all my sponsors for helping me keep going with these daily videos and for helping me to get these tournaments going as well. I can't wait for this first one in July. It's going to be great fun. Thank you so much again for watching the videos over the past couple of years and helping me to get to the 30,000 subscribers. It's so cool of you, and I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get up to 40,000 soon. But for now, thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you here next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games. Thank you so much to my Patreon supporters for helping me to keep going with these regular videos. I couldn't do this without you, and I appreciate your support so much. If you'd like to join the Patreon community, support the channel, get some great perks at the same time, there's a link down below in the description. It'll be awesome to see you there.